This episode is for Friday, May 13th, 2016. Spooky.
Ooh,
AKA the day Avi hit his head.
it's a bad day already, man. Woke up, hit my head, got a little bruise on my face. I want to show people at work, so put a
Nice.
Band-Aid on it. You know, that's what they're made for, I guess.
Yeah. Welcome, Crater fans. I'm your host, Josh Owens, along with my co-host.
Abi Iyer.
All right, dude. So today, I think we got a good lineup. We were just talking about it before I hit record here. Talking about unlimited repos on GitHub, vue.js 2.0, Mongo 2.0, and do you even GraphQL, bro? No, wait. How do I GraphQL? That was it. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, let's dive into it. I'm feeling off my game. Sorry.
Okay.
GitHub, yes, that was like a big announcement this week. It was like 2 days ago, a day ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Like I woke up and like normally we don't even see like GitHub news hit Crater, but this one was big enough that someone posted it there and it got some upvotes. I think if you have like a paid account and you're a private developer, like this was great news, right? Like
Yeah.
my bill just dropped $5 a month. But I think if you do the math, the the amount of money they're going to make off of medium to larger companies went like, way through the roof. So
Yeah.
more than compensated for the fact that they dropped my bill $5.
I know. Yeah, it works well for some. I remember. I know, like the company that works next to us in our accelerator.
Mm,
They were saying that, like, oh yeah, like it's actually more expensive for us now
yeah.
because they have a lot of developers in a certain project, and I think it's like, how much is it per head? It's like, is it $5?
Well,
$9?
I think it's $9 per head, but it's like $25 and you get 5 collaborators, and then it's
Yeah.
$9 a collaborator after that. And that's, I think, also a bit of a change too. Like I think before you could have people collaborating with you, and that wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You could, like, they were limiting you by repo versus per user. Yeah, I don't know. It's really, really interesting. Like, I think back to the early days of differential, like when we went to like, I think the $50 account or something like that.
Yeah.
We really did it because of the number of repos we had. So it would be advantageous in that case. But I think now, they're at like 20, 25 employees. Like, it would likely cost them more now than what they were paying before. So
Yeah. There's also people who have like a lot of employees that work on like a monolithic application. So like they're only going to ever have one repo.
yeah.
Yeah. And so that sucks for them too. But I
Yeah.
don't think you have to upgrade, right? You can just have the same plan you are right now.
Well, so the nice thing, and I think they did this right, looking at their announcement, they're not forcing anyone to switch right now. Well, I guess they forcibly switched the paid private accounts, but they dropped the bill, so
Yeah.
it seems like the right thing to do there. But then they said, like, go ahead and take a look. You can evaluate it if it makes sense. Go ahead and switch. You can stay on your current plan, and we don't have any plans right now to do away with the current plan. But if we do, you'll have at least 12 months notice. So yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. That's the right way to do a pricing change like that, in my opinion. So kudos to them for doing it right. Like, what are you guys, out of curiosity, what are you guys using at WorkPop?
We use GitHub.
Do you?
Yeah, and we have three private repos.
Yeah.
That's it. And or actually four now. Like all our microservices are in the repos, and thankfully we're on that grandfather clause type thing, so we can operate with the same pricing strategy we had before.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have like 20 engineers. That would have costed us a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In a startup like ours, we're not really concerned about technical costs on like, these are like, I don't know, GitHub is like one of those integral parts of your workflow for a big team, even like an individual. So it's like one of those things that like, it's like your servers your database, and your GitHub or your repository. Those are the three things that like are integral to your dev team working.
Right.
So you got to like pretty much just like go with the changes and like see what it works for you, because there's not much alternative. I mean,
just like GitLab or something like that, like Bitbucket. But honestly, like every time that I run into Bitbucket, it just feels inferior to me. Like it's hard to navigate. It's hard to even I don't even think they have. I think Atlassian is the one that puts together Bitbucket. They maybe have some tools, but they don't have any kind of integrated like issue tracker. Do you guys use GitHub issues?
Oh yeah, the funny thing is we don't use issues. We use Jira, which is by Atlassian. So it's really interesting. We use that tool, but that's mainly because GitHub is made for developers by developers, and Atlassian is made by developers for whatever a product manager was thinking of. Because Jira really sucks, right? To be honest, like
yes,
it's hard to use. It's hard to be customized. Essentially, most people are using like 1/10 of the features it actually has, because it's hard to discover any other features that it has, right?
Yeah.
But our product managers have used it, in the past, because it's like one of those like industry things that everyone uses that stuff. So we use that, and I actually on Apollo, everything's done through issues, and that actually works well when when it's only developers and stuff like that. It's nice to use issues. Issue tracker is great for open source, I think.
Yeah, well, and I like it too, like having private repos, working with customers. I find it's a good place. Like they seem okay to collaborate there. And I've got one designer and one developer as well that work for me, and like they're comfortable there as well. So it's just easier for me to assign work and GitHub issues and that kind of thing.
It's also good for your career, because most people use GitHub. So like you might as well just like understand Git and like how GitHub actually works, because your next company probably is using GitHub.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
All right.
But one last comment. I think I want to like kind of like commend GitHub. Like this is probably one of the nicest migration paths I've ever seen. Like no one has ever said you got 12 months, and we don't know what we're doing, but it's going to be in 12 months. We'll figure it out. But don't worry right now. I've always like no one has ever given me that luxury. It's always like, oh yeah, in the new release everything is broken, so good luck, and stuff like that. Or oh, yeah, we're changing our prices at the end of the month, or we're getting rid of all the free servers in 2 weeks, and things like that. So I commend GitHub for
free servers in 2 weeks. Were you referring to someone specifically?
No, not really.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like it's, to me, not the way I read it is like you don't have to switch now, and if we ever decide we're gonna force a switch, you'll have 12 months from that point to kind of make a decision. And that's
it could even be more than a year from now that you actually have to worry about it.
Exactly. That's so awesome. It's like I think at that point, like if you switch to GitLab or anything like that, like 12 months is plenty of time to make that decision.
I know, right?
Even in an enterprise, you can make that decision. So
yeah, and it's once again, it's developers for it's product for developers by developers. It's like how we think. Like we wouldn't do that, hopefully, to like another class of professional like ourselves. So.
Yeah. I don't. It is kind of interesting though. I think this is slowly over time, if you pay attention to GitHub, like it's less campy and less funny and less like it feels more business. Like reading this article was more like businessy to me, even though I mean they did it the right way, but it definitely like there was no funny AutoCAD header. Like honestly, it's the first time I read a GitHub blog post in a while, so kind of big news, I guess.
Yeah. And they have the nagware going on too. So like your profile, if you're in a private repo, half the page is like the announcement. So it's like,
oh yeah,
it's in your face, do it.
Everywhere.
Some people might just do it just to get rid of that freaking that little section of the page.
So that was GitHub pricing 2.0. Tell us about vue.js 2.0.
That's great ordering, my friend. Yeah. So as most people, I think Vue, if you've been using Laravel, you know what Vue is, which Laravel is a PHP framework. If you've been using just straight up like, if you're just in the JavaScript know-how, you know what Vue is. And Vue is just a front-end reactive framework for building really composable user interfaces. And the creator, his name is Evan Yu. He used to work at MDG. He's the author of this. And with Vue 2.0, he's made some really, really nice changes to the framework. And I'm going to go into a couple of them right now. The thing about Vue that's different than other like JavaScript frameworks is Evan's take on reactivity. And his take on reactivity mainly is that everything should just be getters and setters on objects. There shouldn't be like these wrapper functions or like crazy magic. Essentially, it should just be plain JavaScript objects that invalidate themselves, get and set. And that was the whole like principle of Vue. Another principle of Vue is everything is a component. And you write these components similar to Angular directives, so it's readable components, you know? So in Vue 2.0, they did a bunch of new stuff. So they got they're using a virtual DOM renderer, which is super cool. They have their own implementation of virtual DOM so that your components already know when they should update themselves. And that's beautiful because in React, if you want to control rendering or updates, you have to use should component update. And that's like kind of what you're restricted to. And you have to either do some calculations in this function to return true or false, whether to prevent rendering. And Evan looked at that problem in the React community and solved it in Vue by automatically doing this type of should this thing update behind the scenes. Now, some people like myself don't like that type of stuff. Like I'd rather control my own destiny. But if you're trying to go fast and you're trying to make a good application, why worry about small stuff like that? You know, it isn't until your app is so big that that thing matters. Another thing is people, like Evan is a designer. He went to the Parsons School of is it technical arts, and I talked to him about that. And he is a designer design-minded first, right?
Yeah.
And for designers, templating is really, really natural. So he wanted people to preserve their love for templating in Vue. But if you like JSX, if you like that React syntax, you can drop down into the virtual DOM layer of Vue and start writing JSX, or not really necessarily JSX, but virtual DOM code. So that is also a potential. And then I think the last major point to bring up is they're going to give you server-side rendering. And everybody who talks about JavaScript frameworks, the first thing they ask is, oh, where's the server-side rendering? I got to render stuff on the server, make my page load faster. And Evan definitely he figured that out too. And I think a lot of this comes from all the pain points at Meteor that people were talking to him. I think he was just taking notes because they didn't really give him the time of day for his framework there. And it's kind of sad that it didn't, because this product looks super good now. Everything about it is like it's well documented. The docs look beautiful. The actual component model, I think, is very, very, very elegant. And and the reactivity model is like very controlled. There's controlled renders. Everything you wish Blaze was, Vue is. Like seriously. I kind of wish that Meteor took Vue into more of like a supported approach, because right now the PHP community is blowing up. And their applications are going to start blowing up because of the front end capabilities now. I think Laravel is a very, very like cutting edge PHP framework that has actually like been around for years now, and they've adopted Vue as like the front end library. So you got a bunch of people in that side of the world actively developing components and libraries and all that stuff. So I don't know, it's a great ecosystem, and just wish that because he solved all the problems that people wanted in Blaze. It'd just be nice that if Vue was that Blaze replacement, that would have been cool.
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, right? Because he did work at MDG, and like we watched him, like he was working on React and Blaze, and like they stuck him on the front end team, and like clearly he's a smart guy to put there, but at the same time it was definitely a head scratcher. Like, why not have him do Vue integration? Like, if you're gonna drop Blaze, like why not say like, well, we're gonna maybe have a quick bridge to get you to Vue, because there's a nice separate community that's been building over there.
Yeah.
And that's something they wanted to see with Blaze. I don't. It definitely was odd, but it's interesting too because he's got I guess you call it Vuex.
Yeah, which is the unidirectional data flow for Vue, kind
Right.
of like Redux, but like Vuex or whatever. How do you say it? I thought it was French for a second. I was like, what is this, Vux thing? But
Vuex. Yeah, I don't know.
see, that's another thing. Like I talked to Evan about Redux when he was at Meteor, because we were just transitioning from Blaze to React. So like them as like, because we are on a customer, we're like a customer of Meteor.
Mm-hmm.
They like contacted us and made sure that we had the right tools to migrate to React, and like that it was going to be a good process for us. And yeah, him and I talked about it, and very insightful. And I really feel like he was just taking a step back and seeing how this stuff is going to play out. Very smart, like very wise. Just see how this stuff's going to play out. And then he's like, okay, someone won here. So virtual DOM won. Okay, I'm going to take that. Server-side rendering, everyone wants that. Okay, I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
And then really nice, clean templating syntax, but also JSX, because people wanted both. He did both, right?
Yeah.
Something that Blaze didn't do, and something everyone wanted to React. Like really, honestly, I think if people are building Meteor apps right now, they should invest their own time in making a Vue integration, because it might make your life easier, maybe. But yeah,
I'm kind of curious. Like, I want to read more on the streaming server side rendering, right? Because he's talking about like they render the component and you get a readable stream back, and then you can pipe it through the HTTP response. So, like this, what do they say here? This ensures your server is responsive and gets the rendered content to your users faster.
yeah,
So I know that's really, really kind of interesting to me, because I feel like the thing with server side rendering is like when you stumble upon a site that's using it, it actually does feel a little bit faster, in my opinion, like with, for example, Nova versus like non-server side rendered, the way Crater is now. Like the new version feels much, much faster with SSR. So like
yeah.
making that even faster to like send some code and then send some data along as well, like that's really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, and it really is that perceived performance goes up because you see HTML right away. So like in your brain, you know that, oh, I'm ready to go,
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't until later that the JavaScript comes and
Right.
patches itself. So I think it's great. I think I can't wait to see what happens in the future for Vue. It's great.
Yeah, agreed. And if Evan listens to this, like I did ping him privately, I haven't heard back, but I'd love to get him on to talk more in depth about Vue on the
Sounds
Space
like a Space Dojo show.
Yep, definitely. It'd be a great topic, since we've talked about React and React Native and all that kind of stuff. So interesting stuff.
Vue native. That would be some interesting stuff. Vue native.
Vue Native, yeah. We've got Native Script, we've got React Native.
Yeah.
We just need Vue Native. He did reference that in the post too. Like maybe that's a possibility. So
yeah. Sky's the limit if you're looking at other people's mistakes, right?
Yes, definitely. Speaking of sky's the limit, we're the next topic is from Max Stavin. He, if you're not familiar, he wrote something a while ago called Mongol, and I don't know, like I was always kind of impressed with Mongol. It was like I don't know. It's interesting to me because it was developed as like a package that you drop into your Meteor app, but it gives you like this UI on the page, and it shows you like what's going on in your mini Mongo memory cache and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I wonder like what would it look like if it was a Chrome extension instead, kind of like what React has, something like that.
And also, there's the people, I forgot their names, but we use this at work. We use the Meteor Dev Tools, which has a Blaze inspector, it has a DDP monitor, and has a mini Mongo querier. So like that is nice utility. Doesn't have all the orbs and stuff and all that stuff, but if you need a basic instrumentation, like that was there for you.
Yeah,
but
definitely. So he didn't have a changelog, but I asked him what was going on with it, and he sent me a list. So he's added support for transformed documents. So if people aren't familiar with it, with Meteor, you can apply transforms as data is coming out of the database, and you can attach things like change the data or attach new methods onto the object if you want. Like a lot of interesting things you can do there. So there's support for that. He improved the scoping of the CSS, so hopefully that's not bleeding out anywhere. The inline editor is a little bit better. You can right-click to close a window, right-click on Mongol when it's closed, and it'll move it off the page, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple other improvements. But I think, this is the precursor. I think today he just announced Meteor Toys 3. So...
Cool.
we're gonna see a lot of little improvements coming out there as well. And those are the orbs that you were talking about and that kind of stuff. Like definitely, Mongo's like one piece of that. He has Jet Setter for tracking like reactive state using Meteor, and then like with Meteor Toys, he's got like 15 different orbs as he calls them, and you can do interesting things like pretending to be a user and all kinds of fun stuff. So I thought it was pretty cool to see that update coming out. I think that we're at this point where like it was announced so long ago, maybe not everyone's heard of it. Like I noticed in the forum post, people were like, I had no idea this even existed.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
Yeah, definitely. It should be in the guide maybe. I don't know. Maybe there should be like a tooling section of the guide that talks about Mongol and Meteor Toys and the Chrome tools that you're talking about.
Wasn't there like someone who like forked Mongo and made their own version or something?
Yeah, I think there was something called Constellation.
Constellation, that's what it was. Yeah. Well, looks like those people dropped off. So much like everything in software, that's cool. We haven't heard anything from Max in a long time about Meteor related anything up until recently. So.
Yeah, he's been
Must be back in the game.
He's been jet setting around the country or around the world. So nice to see him back.
Yeah, he comes back and like everything's changed.
Yeah. All right. Dang it. Sorry, I was reading. I shouldn't be reading. The chat room while I'm doing the podcast. Trying to schedule another podcast. Yes, so GraphQL, the last story of the day. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is a really good post. It's actually it's by the Apollo guys, Jonas to be specific, and this is actually so he covers like 3 questions that I get asked pretty much a lot. So I'm going to go through this article and I'm going to give you some takes on like, what the right answers are. I know a lot about GraphQL now. So the questions that we usually get are, is GraphQL easy to secure? And I know that's a question that you're very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easy to build a GraphQL server?
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing is, can I use GraphQL with any insert front-end library here? And the answer to all of these things are, the answer is there are easy answers to all these questions. And so let's start with the first one. Is GraphQL easy to secure? Well, the thing is, and the thing that most people don't realize, like the GraphQL, like the query language part, the QL part, is very misleading. Because when you're thinking about query language, you're thinking about a database. You're thinking about, permissions to a DB. But in reality, GraphQL is an application query language. Essentially, like it queries the data that is given to it, right? So a lot of security, you can imagine that whatever you're doing with REST APIs today, how you're making them secure, is essentially just a restructuring. GraphQL is just a restructuring of a REST API into a different syntax that anybody can consume. So the same principles apply. You shouldn't lose any security whether you use GraphQL or a REST API or anything like that. Now, what GraphQL doesn't do is make sure you have your security. So if you're not writing secure stuff already, GraphQL will be insecure. You know what I mean? So that's on the server developer who's publishing this data, and especially in Meteor, right? When
Yeah,
you're publishing data, you're responsible for the security of that data.
yeah, definitely. And that's like the key thing for me, like whenever I do a Meteor code review, is the fact that most people don't realize like the publications are where the security happens. And I would think that it's true here too, right? Like the resolvers are where the security really needs to happen.
Exactly.
And so like there's we talked about this a little bit. There's a piece in the documentation that shows you how to like set the user ID basically using tokens
Yep.
on both sides, and then you can kind of rely on that and query your data based on who's the logged in user and what should they be able to see and all that kind of stuff. So I think you're right. It's really not that different. It's pretty similar to how REST or Meteor currently works. Or anything like that.
And we're working on some type of GraphQL authentication in Apollo. So you can have the luxury of making sure the various resolvers are secure via the proxy itself. But let's say that doesn't exist and it's never going to exist. You yourself should always take responsibility and make your stuff secure, because you cannot rely on tools to make your stuff secure for you. I mean, you can use them, but you have to remember that they need to be secure in the first place. So that's the answer to that question. The next question is it easy to build a GraphQL server? The quick answer is hell yeah, it is easy. And there's a package called Apollo that helps you do that. But if you didn't use Apollo, there's a lot of different GraphQL server implementations. And if you wanted to build your own, the only things you really need to know are, one, prior art. And what I mean by that is look at other GraphQL implementations. Two, you need to know what the GraphQL spec is. Like, you need to read the spec and how it works. Essentially, then you can make a GraphQL server. And there's like very sparse documentation on how exactly you can build one. But, Jonas has a couple of blog posts about the whole GraphQL server. So essentially what a GraphQL server needs is a schema, and that's just going to be the application schema. So when the client asks for certain data, the GraphQL server can resolve that data. So on the other end of the side, on the server side, you need resolve functions. And this tells the GraphQL server how to fetch data for a certain type, right? This also goes into security too, because if the client has a certain schema, and the schema, if you imagine the schema as, just plain as like objects, or you think of the schema keys as functions, but you can take parameters. So if I say on the client, if I want to get the post and I only can take an ID, then there's actually no security hole in the client, because I can only pass ID. I can't pass anything more than that, right? So it's very secure on the client, because the client is dumb and it can only do what it's told. Instead of people like trying to like put like stupid parameters that may like crash your business logic and all that stuff, like, which happens to people. That stuff's not possible. So yeah, it is easy to build a GraphQL server. And there's a really good diagram that was made by Dom at MDG on how this whole server-to-client relationship works, and I encourage people to check it out. So that's that. And then the last question, can I use GraphQL with Angular, React, Ember, Redux? And yeah, the answer is yes. All you need is a GraphQL client. You need some type of interface that can speak to the GraphQL server. So for example, Arinoda, right? He made this thing called Laka. And that is an implementation of a GraphQL client. And essentially what you can do is you can npm install Laka, and you have these certain methods that will talk to the GraphQL server that you set up. At Apollo, we're building Apollo client, which is the same type of implementation, but a lot more like cooler features like query parsing, so you don't have to write these huge schemas and resolve functions all in this massive object. You can actually do schemas separately from your resolve functions, and we parse those and we make them pretty and do all that great stuff. Also, the Apollo client has integrations to Angular 2, so if you want to fit into your current workflow, you can just use Angular 2's integration to Apollo. If you're using React, there's React Apollo. And as more people get involved, there will be other integrations. But today, let's say you're not using Apollo, all you need is a GraphQL client, and you should be good. That's all you need. And with this, that means you can have a React Native app, you can have a mobile app, you can have all these front ends. As long as you have that client interface, you can talk to GraphQL server. So like, how do you GraphQL? It's actually very easy. The first thing is to start GraphQLing. And you'll start figuring out all the pieces as you go. But yeah, this is actually the second show where you talked about this stuff, but I think we'll continually try to educate people as these posts go up, because it's really starting to build something of scale, and personally, it's getting really nice, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. Like, there's definitely, this has been like a long running kind of problem. I'm trying to think. There was a standard that Steve Klabnik was working on, and it had to do with, oh gosh, now I can't think of it now. It had to do with like a REST API, but like being able to ask for a bunch of information about the REST API, and not necessarily having to make a bunch of calls repeatedly. Gosh, now I can't. Hypermedia, that was it. Did you ever hear of Hypermedia? Oop, I lost your audio.
Do you know what that is? I muted myself. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, so the idea is that designing hypermedia APIs. Every web service needs a killer API to interact with numerous clients and other web services. Users expect the applications they use to work together in interesting and fresh ways. Programmable web has created interesting experiences, blah, blah, blah. Hypermedia and RESTful principles drive the largest distributed application ever. World Wide Web. Where's like, oh, here you go. Flexibility, loose coupling. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of fluff on this page. Yeah, I can't find it now. But I seem to remember the ideas behind Hypermedia were kind of similar in that you're just able to send in a request and it would tell you I think it was like aware of all the things it knew about, and it could respond and tell you like, here's some things you can ask for, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean it's like dancing on this idea that like, you know, I like, if I think back to the days of me consuming Twitter or Facebook APIs, you know, I have to make multiple calls to find out all the information that I need, and that's for me as a developer, that's frustrating. Like, I'd rather just be able to make a call and say, like, here's the data I need to run, you know, my particular application, and just get it all in one swing.
Yep.
That would be amazing. Whereas instead we get like, you know, with Twitter, you get like multiple REST calls that you have to make. You get like rate limiting that's applied to that and all kinds of things. And it's like, I don't know, it's just really a bad experience in my opinion.
And imagine a huge data store. Like, you might have to call like 5 APIs, join them on the client, and then now you've built like these like special utility functions that can never be reused because they're like so specific. And like the data that you get back probably has like 15 keys that are just like properties that you don't really care about. Like, I've been in those nightmares where the REST API is kind of inflexible and the people who write it are inflexible, which kind of sucks, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine just saying like, imagine being a client developer where, I mean, back then when I was just consuming REST APIs, I didn't really care what happened. Like, just give me my data because I'm trying to make a really good UX. And I think that is the same principle here. Like, I don't want to have meetings about the API changes. I don't care about the API. I don't care about how you did it. I don't care about the database. I just wanted the JSON. That's all I care about.
Yep.
And I know mobile developers very well. They're kind of, some of them, most of them are like that. They want to build really nice apps, products, product developers. And we shouldn't get bogged down by having to do so much overhead to render a list item.
Yep.
To render Facebook newsfeed, I bet you, if they're doing that with REST, oh man, there's so much metadata about every user, every post, every newsfeed. Like, that would be impossible I mean, it would be very possible because they did it before, but
Yeah.
it would just be really, crappy experience, So there's like, I think most people should start GraphQLing, really. Whether you use it in your app or not, like start getting into it because, once Facebook and, like once Relay, but Relay standalone, once that gets bigger, like anything Facebook does, that thing will just blow up. And then everyone's going to start using it. And the best thing you can do for yourself is get ahead of the curve. Whether it's valuable to you now or not, it's going to be valuable in the future. Kind of wish I got on the React rocket ship before it took off, But I'm on it now, which is great. But like it would have been nice to be there when it blew up,
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do the same thing with this GraphQL stuff.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's definitely like where things will head in the future. And even if, GraphQL itself, gosh, now I wish I could remember the tweet, but it was along the lines of like, even if Relay fails, the idea of GraphQL will live on for a long time because it's like it's out there as a spec and
Yep.
it makes sense to a lot of people. And once people start conforming to it, like you're right, like it's gonna take off. I think it'll be kind of the next big thing to replace REST. Got my window open today.
Choo choo.
Yeah, the guy's like sitting out there honking his horn loudly. I guess.
Just as you say that, he honks it.
Yes. I guess we'll call that a show. Yeah. So big. Nice long one there. That
was a long one, just for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So big thanks to DigitalOcean and Modulus for being sponsors as always. And if you want to hang out in the Slack chat room, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Meteor Club. Join there. $10 a month get you in. Like that's like what, 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks. Get you the best source of like finding answers to your questions around building JavaScript apps ever.
Yeah, and like, testimonial at the end every time. But like,
Bobby's there. What more do I have to say?
No. There's like a lot of people. There are a lot of interesting people from JavaScript community and Meteor community in that chat room. The people that you probably read their blog posts are in there.
Yeah.
So why read their blog posts and comment on them rather than just hit them a personal message on Slack, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll answer any DM on Slack in the Meteor Club chat room.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure everyone else will. So it's really a good community to join. And do it.
Definitely. And then in case you missed it today too, I announced the next CreatorConf, the mobile edition. I'm kind of excited about that. So
it's going to be really good.
If you're interested in like building mobile apps, this is with JavaScript, not necessarily like native. We're not talking about Objective-C or Java or anything like that. We're talking purely JavaScript. So Cordova, React Native, NativeScript, any of those kinds of options that are out there, we're likely going to have a talk on it. I'm actually super excited too because we have some of the New Spring guys coming in, and I think James might talk. He's definitely talking about switching from Cordova to React Native, but I'm kind of hoping he'll show off a little of the GraphQL action they got going on as well.
Yeah. Hopefully we get some Apollo action out of that.
I did ask Martin Walraven to come on, but he's on vacation at that time, so he won't. So
maybe someone else from the Apollo team can do that presentation.
Yeah, I reached out to a couple other people, so we'll see what happens. I also I'm super excited for John Pinkerton's talk as well from New Spring. Like he's going to talk about all their automation. So they're doing a Git commit, and then that triggers building the web app, and then it triggers building the mobile app, and then submitting it to the App Store for update. And now that the App Store's down to 2-day review time, my guess is they're going to start shipping stuff like crazy.
Yeah, and that automation is in our Apollo projects, our GitHub. It's really clean. When we submit a pull request, there's so much stuff that we have automated, and it just makes contributing a lot easier. And that was the main point, is we want everyone listening, anybody, to come join us and help us out. And it's not going to be like the stuff in the past. It's transparent, and you can help. And we're making it easy for you. We give you all the information to do it, so do it.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. See ya.
This video has been a Space Dojo production. You can click the Learn More button to find out more about us at spacedojo.com. Or you can click the subscribe button to get notified about new videos we put out each week. Thanks for watching.